Hey everyone, welcome back. Welcome to another weekly discussion with myself and David Burzin. David, how has your week been?
Thanks for asking, Dan. I always appreciate that you check in with me. That's important. At my age, you never know how my week has been, and I really don't remember much of the week, Dan. But thanks anyways. Thanks for checking in.
That either means it was a great week or a terrible week.
It does mean one of those two
Yeah.
things. Yes,
No,
it does.
nobody forgets an average week. You either have an amazing week that makes you forget it, or you have a terrible week that makes you forget it.
Yes, yes. And most of my weeks I've forgotten, so that means they're good or bad. That's great.
There we
That's
go.
it's good stuff, Dan. Yeah,
I mean, you made it here, so it can't have been all bad. You
I
made it.
did, and I am wearing sunglasses because I'm not sure my eyes may have told the story about my week that I wasn't so willing to share just yet. So I just decided to throw on the sunglasses.
I mean, you're also sitting under a palm tree, so the aesthetic works.
Oh, good. Thank you for that. Thank you.
All right, well, kick off today's episode. First of all, we're going to start with a bit of an apology. Last week, when we were reading out the comments, discussing stuff with what people had wrote there, we spoke about Rainbow Jim, who found out some incredible information about the Stadium Challenge Deoxys. I spoke to Rainbow Jim this week. It seems during the episode we referred to Rainbow Jim as a gentleman, and Rainbow Jim is actually a lady. Rainbow Jim is female. Her name is Leah, and she wanted me to just issue a correction within the episode, mainly because she is going to be selling off some high-end items over the next couple of years, and she didn't want any sort of confusion behind, I heard on the podcast that Rainbow Jim's a dude, so you're not Rainbow Jim, whatever. Leah actually has like a really long history with TPCI, so has a lot of really, really cool stuff from back in the day. I think she started judging and stuff around 2004, 2005, right when they took over, so just a correction on that one. Obviously, apologies out to Leah. We wouldn't have done that deliberately. It was a total mistake on our part.
Yes, I didn't see. I thought Rainbow Jim, when you were referring to Rainbow Jim, was Jim, but it's GYM. So we are
Yeah,
definitely sorry, and we appreciate Leah or Leia or however she says it for giving us that information.
yeah, we always appreciate it. And everything else said in the video was just David's attempt at humor, so don't worry about that.
Yes, which is bound to offend multiple people. So don't worry about that at all.
Yeah, I talk to David every week, and sometimes I don't even get what he's talking about.
Well, thanks, Dan. That really is. It's a general lot of credibility there. Thank you. Okay.
It happens. All right, let's get on to the comments. So, Old School Pokemon said that your date night story was great, so thanks for that, Old School Pokemon, because now you've justified him doing it again. So, everything that happens from here on out is on you.
I love that. Great.
Grand Party Pokemon just sent a smiley face with stars for eyes. Lamar said, thanks for taking so much time to answer my questions. I would have to agree that the cards are semi-one-offs and factory cuts. Lamar left the questions last week where we talked about square cut cards, match prints, the errors, that kind of thing. Matty is back. Matthew Thompson said, David, we both know it's the copious amounts of Yorkshire puddings that ruin your date night as they put you in a food coma. Again,
Yeah,
that date
I can't
night's...
invite. I'm not inviting out of country people to my home anymore, so that's fine.
Pika Drew says, love the series. I'm excited to hear about David's origin into Pokemon. Like we said, we'll do an episode on that at some point in the future. It's interesting to see someone who's admittedly unknowledgeable about Pokemon and the IP in general, who is so heavily vested in the products, more specifically so heavily invested without having his collection into the mania. Yeah, I mean, you know some stuff about Pokemon outside of the cards, but there's just a plane going past you there. There's a lot going on in Pokemon, some stuff. I don't think you're completely ignorant to how Pokemon is outside of it. It's just, the cards are your main interest, and that's definitely something that's true with me too. I definitely have card collections for IPs where I only care about the cards and don't actually follow the IPs themselves.
But it was kind of an offensive word, right? Unknowledgeable. I mean, I don't say where anybody has the right to call me unknowledgeable unless they want to call it to me. You know what I'm saying? So I was called unknowledgeable, and let's just acknowledge that right now.
We can acknowledge it, and we can also acknowledge that the premise of this entire video series is that you're unknowledgeable and I'm teaching you stuff. So
Okay.
we can't fight that premise now, or we've got
All
nothing to
right.
talk about.
That's fine. And you know what? And you just got done saying that I know the cards, but I don't know the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, you
You're
also
wrong.
don't.
I don't know the cards
I
either.
say you don't know the cards. You have interest in the cards. You
Yes,
see the cards.
I love the cards. They're really cute and
Yeah.
neat. Yeah.
I think it's, as I was saying, it's true with me. This week I actually bought some pretty rare My Little Pony cards. Now, I've been a collector of the My Little Pony card game for a while, but I have zero knowledge or interest in the IP outside of the card game. Like, I've never seen an episode of that show or never really seen anything about it other than the cards. So it's something that happens for a lot of people. Just one specific part of a franchise can just grab a hold of them.
Dan, what does IP stand for?
Intellectual property.
I thought so, but I couldn't really bring it from my days back as a computer programmer into this area. So made no sense to me, but yeah, okay, fair enough.
Right, and final comment. NP Pokemon said they were late to have their comment read for episode 2, so they'll hear it again. Yeah, I think they commented at the point where we had recorded episode 3 but hadn't released it yet. They say they're super excited for the show, keep up the good work, and they said it was an honor to have you on their channel for a chat a couple of years ago. And I said, now we get Dan, one of those knowledgeable in the hobby, each and every week to keep bringing him back. So I'm guessing you did a podcast with them, or you did a chat with them on their channel a few years ago. I'm looking at you like you would remember something from 2 years ago.
Yeah, no, and I really don't, but I appreciate the fact that you gave me the benefit of the doubt, Dan. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure you did something good on there. They also said, question for next episode, have you guys looked into Disney's Lorcana? It's probably on Dan's radar. Collector set is looking promising, but I'll be selling mine off. Have you heard of Lorcana at all?
Absolutely not.
So Lorcana, I feel like it's something that's not really going to interest you, but would interest some of the people that live in your household a lot more. It's the new Disney trading card game that's coming out later in the year.
Okay.
I think there are some Disney fans in your house, I believe, even if you're not really one of them.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm going to stick with Marvel and Pokemon, and that's good enough for me. I've got plenty of stuff to worry about right with those two franchises. So.
Yeah, definitely. Just to give MP Pokemon a bit of an answer, I have pre-ordered quite a lot of Lorcana stuff. I'll be doing some videos and stuff when that comes out. The collector set they mentioned, I didn't manage to get a hold of that one. I do have the Mickey from D23, but I don't have the collector set. At the time, day one of D23 is when you should have bought the collector set because everyone thought it was going to be really cheap and that Mickey was going to be expensive, and then they just flipped. But as I say, I will do a lot more videos on Lorcana in the future. I don't want to take up too much of this video with Lorcana, so keep an eye out on the channel when the set actually releases.
Yeah, Dan, it is supposed to be honestly a Pokemon channel, and I appreciate the fact that you've got such a wide variety of interests and expertise, but if you look at our numbers already, Dan, in just 3 or 4, podcasts, we've managed to lose half the viewers. There's nobody really watching or commenting anymore. I've asked for certain inputs. No one's provided them. So at this point, let's just stick to, continuing our rapid decrease in viewers at the expense of Pokemon.
Yeah, I think if we keep going at the rate we are, by about 8 or 10 episodes in, we'll have no viewers and just be doing this for ourselves. So looking forward to that one.
That's good. I like that. We better rapidly turn this around, buddy.
We've got that curve going down, and then hey, maybe once we get to no viewers, then the only place to go from there is up. So
okay, God, I love your optimism. You're fantastic. Yeah, and I got to talk now. Can I get a word in? Can I get a word in edgewise?
You can talk. That's the end of the comments. You can talk for a bit. I'm just gonna sit here holding this Bidoof.
Thank goodness, Bidoof. I'm talking to you. Forget the guy that's holding you. So. Dan, I had a lot of people reach out to me last week, and they were kind of furious because I had failed, and my apologies for this, to mention about what's going on in Pokemon Bachelor. And I know it's something that you don't watch, and again, that's on you, but a lot of our viewers clearly watch that. So basically, by way of a quick update, this week Jock is doing hometown visits with the 2 remaining girls, Miriam and Katie. And I believe that he's leaning towards Miriam. That's just my take on it, because she's got some intimate picnic basket lunch planned for them. And I think that she's considered to be the most valuable or worth more than the other gal. And also, I think that he's all about someone he can evolve with, and Miriam fits that criteria pretty well. So that's just my quick update. I apologize for not getting to you guys that last week, but Pokemon The Bachelor running strong, and you can count on Uncle Dave to watch that for you and keep you in the loop.
Well, I'm glad you used your opportunity to talk to tell us something really important. Thank you for that. And I'll tell you what, here is a nice little advertising thing for my Patreon. If you are on my Patreon, when I post this episode, I will tell you why that story did not make it into last week's episode. and only on my Patreon will I tell you the story of why that did not make it into last week's episode.
That's classic for a guy. You know what? You're very astute when it comes to that little tease marketing. I appreciate that. It's good.
Yeah,
I know what that story is too. So
I will throw you under the bus for $1 a month.
Okay. I love that.
That is where I'm at on this.
All right, moving on. Target. So we talked about Target. We talked about last week the fact that the blister packs were not containing variants like the old days. And so, I had my wife go back to Target and return them. Whoops. No. You can't return them at Target. Their new policy is no cards will be allowed to be returned at Target for any reason whatsoever. And their new excuse is we don't have it on the cashier's drawer. We have no way of actually returning it. So I just want to make sure folks are careful when they're buying because, so I've got a few extra packs that will be open down the road to sell and a few extra cards that I thought were variants that are not variants. Just wanted to put that out there.
It happens. I think a few places started doing that just because I don't think it's anything to do with the excuse they actually gave. I think some places are worried about, people opening and resealing products.
Of course, that would make sense. So
I have actually heard that some Targets in our area, I don't know if this is countrywide, but in our area, they've started reintroducing the 2 Pokemon items per person purchase limit, which a lot of places had that during the pandemic, when supplies were a lot lower. But I guess even if supplies are up, more people are buying now, so there's a lot more of that going on.
Yeah, we haven't seen that here yet, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Again, sometimes people move away from it when they don't see it on the shelves for a while.
Yeah.
Then when it comes back, they sort of reindoctrinate to it. And then if they start buying quantities, then they would have to do that again. So
yeah, it may just be a Midwest thing where we're out in the middle of nowhere. And I guess I say we're out in the middle of nowhere. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, so I'm in a fairly major city, but it's the middle of nowhere compared to like California and New York and places like that.
Yeah, California, New York, you're not going to have Bidoof as the person or the character that you're holding. So, yeah, that's definitely a Midwest thing.
There we go.
Dan, the next thing on my agenda today was I wanted to finish up because last week I had talked about that Tyler the Great auction with you.
Yeah.
And my perceived or hoped for or involvement in it in trying to help the acquirer raise some capital so that he could purchase the collection of the card. So he was going to sell me some Pokemon cards, and I expected that to all be done. So that actually has not come to fruition. I'll just mention that. And I wanted to talk about why at this point it looks like it may not end up happening. And, there was lots of back and forth, but the key difference when it was all said and done had to do with the definition of market value. So I thought a lot of people might find this interesting because as I scan through some of the Facebook groups, a lot of folks will say, I'm looking to pay 60% of market value or 70% of whatever value.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get your take on this, so generally speaking, what his thought was you take a look at all of the different sales out there and maybe average them out in some way or look for the median or look for the mean. And my take was very different in that when I looked at the most recent sales of things, I would see things that were, they could have been listed for $1,300 as market value on his sheet, but I see them selling for $850 and $900 over the last, say, 30 days, something like that. Now, also, when you're buying a larger collection, market value for me would mean you would sort of look more at expect to get a discount when you're paying quite a bit of money, not just a few $100 or $1,000 for cards. So I'm not sure which one of us is right or wrong or where the gray or areas come in, but what's your take on market value? And maybe the watchers, the few that are here, will actually give us some comments in the comment section about their ideas on market value as well.
All right, I'm going to start by putting Bidoof down so my arm's starting to hurt.
That's good. Absolutely.
So generally when you see in the Facebook groups people talking about market value for non-really rare items that are pretty readily available, they're generally referring to the website TCG Player. And what that does is that has different values. It will say, this is the lowest you could buy it for right now. And it will have a market value, which is an average of the actual sold items on their site over the past few months. TCG Player isn't, a company that is just directly selling the cards. It's a marketplace where anyone can list their cards, and so then it's not one company selling, and saying this is our sales data. But I think that's where people get the impression of what market value is just by going by TCG Player. And then obviously for rarer items, it's just has anything sold ever. I personally don't think that you should always look at TCG Player. It can be a decent guide, if you look at those last few months. But if you look on eBay or whatever, and you do see in the last 30 days or even the last 2 weeks, there's been a huge, huge shift in what is actually sold, then I think you have to go by that new amount. You can't just say, 2 months ago it was selling for this, and then a month ago it was selling for that. And if there's been a bit of a dip, we can ignore that. Or if it's gone up, we have to go by that. Depending on whether you're buying or selling, people are going to want to go buy different ones. But in Pokemon, there's just so much that changes, and especially with this less so for collectibles, but more so with playable cards. Like overnight, cards can change. You could say this card was $1 yesterday, but today it's $20, and that can just happen. You have to go by the latest stuff. Like obviously with playable cards, it's because something won a tournament, or there's been a buyout, something like that. Like someone said, "Oh, that card's doing well. I'm going to buy every copy of it." So that can change overnight, and I think you just have to. I think you just have to take a look at the bigger picture. Obviously, looking at the last 3 months can always be helpful to see whether there has just been, one completely outlier sale. If the graph goes like this, you can probably ignore that one. Something maybe happened there, but you should be looking at the most recent stuff as your primary way of going by it. The other way to go by market value is just to say, what can I buy this for now? You can look at sales listings, but you can also look at what is available. Because if something hasn't sold for a month and it sold for 700 a couple of months ago, but now there is nothing available for less than 900, even if they are buy it nows and they haven't sold, if you can't find anyone willing to go below that price, then maybe that is close to what the new market value is.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of that makes a lot of sense, and I understand the TCG Player part. I'm not really that familiar with the site or anything,
Yeah.
but I think that when there are trends, and there clearly are trends, I can see even in my eBay business right now, things are quite slow at the moment. So typically that's not the case. So when there's trends in spending or lack thereof, as a buyer, and I think even as a seller, you have to respect, if you were a buyer, you would look at the most recent sales and what's out there available right now. And if that's lower, I wouldn't expect anybody to pay more
Yeah.
for something that's actually I can get for a lower price right now. So this
Yeah.
concept of average, median, or mean, for me, it doesn't make sense when I'm trying to provide values to people. If I'm going to price, I'm going to look at the lowest prices and try to be $1 lower. I'm not
Yeah. Yeah.
looking to find an average and try to put myself in the middle and hope they're going to just buy from me. So I just think it's an interesting thing to hear from people on, because it may have been the barometer of a collapsed deal, of a very large collapsed deal that
Yeah.
was being constructed by somebody who's like me, sort of a more holistic look from the 30,000 foot down viewpoint, and a person that's more of an engineer who can really find themselves more in the weeds of the data, and saying, but this is how it should be, and this is how I've always taken it to be. And again, there shouldn't be a divide between a seller and a buyer. Really, there should be some meaningful, mutual, agreeable point, because
Right.
both players at one point or another are buyers in some fashion, or
Yeah.
sellers, I guess.
I mean, there is also the chance that the seller that you've been dealing with had a price in mind for what he thought the Tyler card would go for, and so was trying to arrange sales based on what he thought it would go for. And then if it went for less than he actually initially thought it might, maybe now he doesn't need to sell as much as he initially thought, so he's getting rid of his rock bottom prices that he was trying to move stuff at, and coming up a bit more and just saying, okay, now that I don't need to sell this, this is what I would actually sell it for because I'm happy to keep it.
Right, right.
And I think that there's a lot of times where people are like that, and I think that's okay. You have to understand the difference between I want to sell this now, and if I sell this, I sell it. If I don't, I don't. And there's been cards, I've got, and I know a lot of other people have, where they would ask me opinions, and I would say, okay, do you need this sold by tomorrow, or is this something where you'll put it up, but you're okay hanging on to it if you don't get the price you want? And the prices you should be asking for are completely different in those scenarios. Like, I've had a couple of my extra worlds cards up for sale recently. I think I put them on my Instagram and some Facebook groups. I've got a couple of extra staff cards and one extra top 32, and I put them up at a fairly high price. Like, I think a little above the most recent sales. And I just said to people, look, we can talk about the price, but I don't have to sell these right now. It's, if I keep these for another year, I keep them for another year. It's not like I have a bill I need to pay and these have to go. Like, if I had a bill that was due in 2 days' time and I was worried about it, I'd knock $100 off the price immediately. But that's not the case, so I can wait. Those two prices are always completely different, just depending on how much you need the money.
Dan, how much of a role does Laura play in the decisions about what you have to sell and that you need to sell it right this second for whatever the heck she says?
Luckily, she kind of trusts me on that kind of stuff. There's sometimes where it's like, okay, we're doing this. A lot more times it will be, you need to have X amount of money by X date. Like, I know leading up to August, as we're planning, because we're planning to go to Japan, obviously in August for Worlds, and probably go to Disneyland and stuff while we're out there, make a trip of it. There's kind of a thing of, okay, we want to have X amount of money by the time we go, but she's not on my back saying, like, this thing needs to be sold right now. She's like, okay, sell what you need to sell to get this amount of money. You pick what it is, you set the prices, whatever. She's fairly understanding with that kind of stuff.
Okay. Okay. Well, I
She
think
she
that you
runs
put the,
she runs up the credit card bills, and as long as I pay it off, she doesn't care how I do it.
that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
And we should also shout her out right now for her wonderful editing in the videos that she's when she's been assisting you at some point to help
yes,
edit
she's
some of these
been.
videos as well.
Yeah, she does all of the photos of the cards. I just, when I go through and do my initial edit, I just send her a list of all the cards I need, and she finds the images and sizes them all properly and stuff. So thanks,
That's great.
Laura. I couldn't do it without you. Or I
Okay.
could, but
Very
it would
good.
take me a lot longer than it takes you.
No, no, it's just better to say you couldn't do it without you.
I couldn't do it without you, Laura.
Yes, just stop there in your head. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on because at some point
Yes.
a 1 hour broadcast might go to 6 or 8. So with me on the channel as well. So I got my new set in. I got Lost Origin in.
Yeah.
I want to mention the cards that I thought that I liked. I always
Yep.
say independent of any value, criteria.
Yeah.
And I want to act like that's an important thing I'm going to do in mentioning those cards. But the reality, Dan, is no one cares because do you know, Dan, that actually last week when I said, tell me what you guys might like in some of these sets, there wasn't a single response because I don't even know if anybody looks at a card that's not a Charizard or buys a full set anymore or has any time to really spend outside of their work and their kids and their responsibilities and the tough things in life. Dan, is it even worthwhile if I just mention these three cards, or should I just
Oh, we
stop
should
now?
we should definitely mention them, and I'll take a look and see which ones were my favorites from that set too. I just think what it is the Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield era killed set collecting. Like, we've talked about it before, how difficult it was to put sets together. I think it killed off the enjoyment for a lot of people. So a lot of people did move to just chasing the couple of cards that they really wanted. I'm hoping now with Scarlet and Violet having been a lot easier to complete a set, we might start seeing people back in. But I think we should mention them because I do still like looking through all the sets and stuff too.
Okay, and this Lost Origin is what, the last set of Sword and Shield? Is that correct?
No, it was the second to last main set. So there was Lost Origin, then there was Silver Tempest, and then there was Crown Zenith, but Crown Zenith was like the special holiday set. So Lost Origin was the second to last main set of Sword and Shield.
Okay, so I have justified the gentleman, the person. I don't want to say gentleman, but the person's comment of being completely unknowledgeable with my lack of
Yeah,
knowledge of exactly what set it actually is. So thank you, Dan,
there
and
we
thank
go.
you for the comment. All right. My first card is Nessa, and I'm looking at that card, and it's a supporter, and it's the number is TG 27 out of 30,
Yeah,
And
it's
what
the
I love about
full.
this card, what is it?
I was gonna say it's the full art Nessa from the trainer gallery.
Okay, Trainer Gallery. That's what that
Yeah,
stands for. And the blues in this card are unbelievable. I love the way the Pokeball is in blue and just jumps out off the blues. And I love on her glove, she's even got some blue, and she got a little tattoo kind of thing on her arm. It's just a very striking card. So I had to point out the Nessa.
yeah.
I'm
For
gonna
the you mentioned the Pokeball, the dive ball Chesner artwork across. I think a lot of the trainer galleries for a few different sets. They did a lot of full art supporters using different Pokeballs. So there's if you look across the sets, there's a lot of them who have a different Pokeball in the artwork that they're throwing, and it matches up nicely with their type of character. So it's like a very very nice artwork set going across a few different expansions. I'm a big fan of that. I always think that Pokeballs and the different designs of Pokeballs can always look really, really nice in artwork if done well. And I think these trainer gallery supporters have really done that.
Oh, cool. That's very good. I did not realize that there'd been that kind of variety. So, thanks to your podcast, I'm starting to look at the cards again. So that's the
Yeah.
reason that you're bringing me up to speed quite rapidly. Thank you.
All right. You
Dan,
got some
I'm
other
going to move on to my
cards.
next card. Okay, next
There we
one is
go. Yeah.
collapsed stadium. It's the gold card, and what I love about it, the artwork is so crisp. But I love the outlines of the stadium. Um, that they're all kind of aligned in the gold flecks, so they really stand out when you look at it, as well as the kind of the whole gold card. The gold cards are always so sharp. But
Yeah.
Collapse Stadium is number two, and my last one is, and this one just is for me personally, Dan. This is the gold card Box of Disaster, 214 of 196. I think the stadium might have been 215.
Yeah.
And any card that is gorgeous and is called Box of Disaster, for me, it's exactly where I want to find myself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm the guy that when the red button says, please don't push, you know that it's going to be pushed, right? So we're going to
Yeah.
open this Box of Disaster. We're going to get inside and we're going to find out what kind of trouble and chaos we can cause. This is a really sharp card, and this may be the one that if I ever have someone draw a card for me, I actually look to expand and put on a wall. Maybe it'll be on my tombstone one day. His
There
entire
we go.
life was lived as if he was in a box of disaster.
We can maybe get your coffin set up, designed like the box of disaster. We can maybe do that at your funeral. Just get a big box of disaster built, and we'll bury you in it.
That is a great idea.
There we
You
go.
know what? I'm tired of all this cheap coffin stuff. This will give me a reason not to get cremated, Dan.
Yeah. There you go.
Just go a little bit
Yeah.
morbid through the podcast already. Thanks. That's good
Hey,
stuff.
I mean, maybe Pokemon needs to get on it themselves. You know, there are a lot of brands sell coffins. Like Gene Simmons is selling Kiss coffins. I think Iron Brew sells Iron Brew coffins. There's so many brands doing it. The new item that needs to be in the Pokemon Center alongside the skateboards. We need to be selling Charizard coffins.
Yes, or box of disaster
A box
coffins,
of
even
disaster
better.
coffins. There we
I
go.
don't know
Yeah.
how you know so much about coffins, Dan. So that's a real problem in and of itself. We've got to work through that. But listen, we all support you.
I
We're all
I
here
don't
for
know
you
a
if you
lot
need
about
something.
coffins. I know a lot about merchandise.
Okay, all right.
So some brands just happen to put their merchandise labels on coffins. It happens.
All right. You just keep spending, buddy. You're doing a heck of a job. Okay. Raise money by August. Don't forget.
Yeah,
Dan, I was told.
I'm not gonna buy
Yes.
myself a coffin.
No,
I
no
don't.
coffins
I
yet.
don't need
Let's,
that yet. No.
no, you're good. Slow down on the coffin spending.
Yeah.
Dan, let's see some other things I went and just looked at a little bit this week. I thought I might pull out just for interest. So
Yep.
I have I can't say the word, but it's an Yveltal. We'll talk about some error
Yep.
cards. That'll be our next little segment.
Yep.
So error
Yveltal, you said it
cards.
right.
Yes. So I have that card, which is XY32, and you probably helped me acquire that card at some point.
I believe so.
And,
Yeah.
yeah, and what is it missing? It's missing. Hopefully, you'll show it
Yeah.
on
I'll
your
show. I'll show
screen.
a picture of it. It's so the second attack, Wings of Destruction, should do 80 damage, and the error version doesn't have the damage on it. Similar to a lot more people are aware of the Ninetales from base set that is missing the attack damage, the Shadowless Ninetales, where again it's just missing the number next to the attack, and this is a similar sort of thing.
And what is the story behind this? As far as how rare do you think it is? What can you
So
tell us about this card?
This one is very rare. So actually, I can actually show you the product if you give me 1 second. So, okay. The card came in this. This is a Battle Arena deck. So you buy a pre-built deck with, well, two decks in it, the Xerneas and Yveltal. This one is a sealed error one. This isn't mine, this is Laura's. Laura owns, I think, one of only two sealed copies of this deck known about. She has one and Yeti Gaming has the other. So it's believed there were only actually a couple of cases of those decks which had the error card on them. And a case of those, I think, is 8 copies of the deck, maybe 6. So it was thought there was potentially as low as 6 or 12 copies of that Yveltal. I think it maybe seems like there's a little bit more now, but there's still not that many. In terms of population, there's nowhere near as many as there are of the Ninetales, and you just don't see this Yveltal as often. And a lot of them were opened because the deck itself has another Yveltal in it. So you have that face card that's on the front of the deck there, and then inside the deck box that comes in the product, there's another Yveltal as part of the deck. So I think a lot of people opened hoping there'd be 2 errors in, but if you get one of them sealed, only the face card is the error. The Yveltal within the deck doesn't have the error on it. So that is where it came from, and it's very, very low numbers on how many of these are out there.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, and I knew that Yeti Gaming had one, but I did not know that Laura had one. So congratulations.
Yeah, and hers is in slightly better condition than the Yeti Gaming one as well. So those are the only 2 sealed ones we know of. Laura made sure because we bought ours directly from one of the people who opened up the case, and I remember Laura said to me at the time, she was like, "Oh, I'm getting a sealed one and a loose card. Do you want both as well?" And I was like, "No, I don't collect sealed stuff. Just get me a loose card." And I'm regretting that now because even just having that extra $5,000 or whatever it is item, I wouldn't have minded that. I think $5,000 was the last price tag Yeti had on theirs. The card itself, I think, is 1,000 to 2,000 range based on what I've seen recently. But when Yeti Gaming have the only sealed one that's ever going to be for sale because Laura's not selling hers, then I guess they can ask what they want on it.
Yeah, it's too bad that Laura always has a little bit better collection than you as well. But just keep playing catch up, buddy. I've got faith in you. Okay.
That is one of the big factors behind me never selling those trophy cards. Is because as long as I have those trophy cards, it's debatable on who has the better collection. Because she's like, "Oh, I've got the upside down stamps, and I've got the sealed Yveltal, and I've got this, and I've got that." I'm like, "Yeah, but I have world's trophies though. I have world's trophies. If the world's trophies are gone, I'm in solid second place. I'm
All
at
right.
least fighting my corner for now."
Good for you, Dan. Good job. All right. So how about another error? This is a Dragonite 2015 Roaring Skies,
Yep,
and 52 of 108. It's called a stage 1 error.
yeah. So this is another one where this is worse for the Yveltal than for me because at least with the Yveltal, I have the card, and it's just Laura has a loose copy and a sealed copy. With this Dragonite, she has the card and I don't, so I'm very gutted about this one. So this one, you David have fluked into accidentally putting 2 very similar errors together. I'm about to say something, and I know there is no way you did this on purpose, but this is also an error card that can only be found in a sealed deck.
Wow.
Same as the Yveltal. So this one, obviously, you would never be able to find a sealed version because this card isn't on display the way the Yveltal is. The only way of knowing if the error card is in there is you have to open up the deck. So this is one of the 2 theme decks for the Roaring Skies set. I think it was the Zapdos deck. I'll put a picture on screen of whichever one it definitely was. So the Dragonite within the main set is a holo card, but as you know, theme decks usually have some variants in them. Usually they'll have a Cosmos foil, not Cosmos foil, well, a Cosmos foil or a Cracked Ice foil as the face card of the deck, and then the deck itself will often have some non-foil versions of cards that should have been foil or would have been foil in the set. This Dragonite was one of those, so all copies of the theme deck will have some Dragonites in them that are variants, they're non-holo variants. But a very, very small, again, number of these decks probably only a couple of cases worth of decks have Dragonite listed as a stage 1 Pokemon as opposed to being a stage 2. And you can see it in the top left corner of the card there, right above the Dragonair. It says stage 1. That's the error on this card. And again, this is another unbelievably rare one.
All right, well, very good. Yeah, yeah. Anything I do that makes any sense at all is completely random.
Yeah.
So just the fact that I was trying to pull out a few cards for the
Yeah,
podcast today,
pulled out a couple of error cards and accidentally pulled out a pair that worked really well together.
yeah, cool, great. Well, thank you for that explanation. I have one more, and
Yep.
that is I have in the last several months ago, I got a it's called a blank card placeholder.
Yeah.
And it's from it says E-Card Series Water Energy. It was a filler card, and that's what it says. It's a blue Water Energy card that says blank card placeholder on it.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about that one?
So, what a filler card is I'm sure people know, especially if they've watched the previous episodes of this, cards are printed on sheets. You can see one sort of behind me there. Hopefully, it might be cut off by the border. But they're printed on big sheets. They're not printed as individual cards. A filler card is if they want to print a number of cards that isn't completely divisible by the number of cards on the sheet. Usually the sheets are 11 by 11, so 121 cards on the sheet. Often they'll want to print 120 cards. Say if they're printing 4 cards and they want equal numbers of each on the sheet, like for older theme decks, they want to print the holo cards, and you'll see there are some sheets out there. I think we've probably all seen there's like the Kangaskhan Vaporeon one where they printed a lot of the holos of the 2 for the theme decks. I don't think that one has a filler card on it, but it's a similar sort of thing. Sometimes they'll want a filler card on the sheet just to keep numbers open, and if they just put it in the bottom right, it will just be something where this card is intended to be destroyed. This card is just there to fill the gap so that we don't confuse it with anything else. But obviously, mistakes happen in packaging, and sometimes these cards get out. Sometimes they get put into packs by mistake. There's been a lot of different filler cards that we've seen over the years, with a lot of different rarities in how often we see them, and a lot of different desirability based on what the actual cards are. One of the most famous ones, or one of the ones you see most consistently, is a newer one with just the yellow border, and it will just say the word blank across the middle of the card. I've pulled one of those myself. They were pretty rare for a while, and then the Brilliant Stars pre-release kits actually had quite a lot of them in. You would be pulling them. I mean, you wouldn't pull them all the time, but there were enough of them came out that a lot more got posted on social media. So this is one of those. Obviously, you can see it's from the e-reader series, so it's around the time that they were printing, Expedition Aquapolis, Skyridge, those kind of sets. And this is one that they would just put in the bottom, blank card placeholder. And this one is one of the rarer ones and one of the more desirable ones. This one and the one that is like a grayscale Pokemon back on the front of the card. It's the regular Pokemon back and then a black and white back on the front. Those two, I think, are some of the most desirable ones. And then this one, I believe, is rarer than the grayscale card one.
Yeah, I had not been aware of this before. I mean, again, what was more interesting to me about this one was just purely how long ago it had come out, right? It had to be found in someone's private collection from many, many years ago, as opposed to, like you say, the blank ones with the yellow borders that are coming out now that are becoming more, prominent or well-known. This just being more of an older age, thinking there might not be as many of them out there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see these crop up very often. I don't think it's unique. I don't think it's the only one that's out there, but there are very low numbers of how many are actually out there. I don't ever remember seeing these a few years ago, like back when I first started collecting. So it's either just that the people who had them didn't think there was any value in them and they were keeping them just because they thought they were cool, or it's just that these have been discovered somewhere recently. I just don't remember people showing them off, at least until the last 5 years or so.
And where would you put a card like that, since it doesn't have a set number or anything, and it just says, it just has the expedition kind of look to it, the e-reader look? Could it could really go in any e-reader set for that matter, as far as it would actually fit there?
The other option is if you put it in with, you would have your e-reader promo binder, or I guess it's the Wizards of the Coast era promo binder. I do my promo binders where I put the Black Star promos first and then other promo sets. So like my Wizards of the Coast promo binder has the Black Star promos, then the best of game promos, then the Southern Islands, the Pikachu World Collection stuff. So that is something that I think I would put in my promo binder like that. I know it's not a promo, but it's an unnumbered card that just doesn't really have a good place to sit. I do know with newer generations, obviously we get unnumbered energy cards now, and for those I put in my like miscellaneous promo binders also because they could have been in multiple sets. So for me, that's where I would put that. But it could just as easily go in the back of your expedition binder. If you were going to put it in with one of the sets, I'd probably do it with expedition because it's the first one. I'm not even sure if Aquapolis and Skyridge actually have the basic energy cards in them. It might just be expedition. So I'd go with either expedition or with your promo binder from that era.
Okay. All right. Good to know. So
Or
I had one more.
because it's really valuable, you can also just put it in your safe. That's also a good
Yes.
option.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true. Although, half those cards are just laying around a room somewhere. It's kind of like the table you have behind you. So,
yeah, yeah. I've been there. I've seen it.
all right. So the other thing that I pulled out, I think I pulled one more thing. No, actually, I
Yeah,
have two. So I wanted to mention the Dark Charmeleon card. The interesting thing about that, and you can explain what it is, it's that it's got the Wizards of the Coast stamp on it. It's part of what,
yeah.
a 6 card set or something?
Seven cards. They were released through completely different means. It was just 7 different promos released by Wizards of the Coast with their golden stamp on the corner of the artwork. And there was like some in magazines. One, the Arbok, I think, was only released at Hong Kong leagues, something like that. I think it's the Dark Arbok and the Dark Charmeleon are the rarer ones, the ones that had a lower release than the others. But like I say there was no consistent release between them. It was just a generic promotional stamp that Wizards of the Coast could put on a promo if they didn't have a Black Star promo they wanted to make, if they didn't want to make an exclusive artwork card, it would just be like, okay, we have this stamp, we put it on a promo, it goes in wherever.
So my story is, of course, being the lunatic that I am, I sold the one sealed copy of it that I had on eBay maybe a couple years ago. Then I started putting together the promo binder with all of the stuff and realized I was going to try to include in the promo binder not just the loose cards from these sets, but where there was sealed versions issued, a sealed copy as well.
Yeah,
So I had to go back into the market and repurchase the card, which I did just maybe a few months ago. And interestingly, since the time that I've purchased it, I've only seen one additional sealed card
yeah,
come on the system, meaning I have a feeling that those cards in and of themselves are becoming more and more rare.
yeah. The Dark Charmeleon I very rarely see sealed. Um, the dark, like I said, the Dark Arbok and the Dark Charmeleon are some of the rarest ones. I think the Dark Arbok is the hardest to find overall, but that one I do still see more sealed copies than of the Dark Charmeleon. And then obviously the others, when they come sealed, they're like in plastic in a magazine. But so obviously you can't put that in your binder. But yeah, I don't see very many of those sealed. I'm just double checking where it came from, and the Dark Charmeleon was an Australian exclusive. It says it was a craft giveaway, which I think it's still the food stuff like it is in the US. So something to do with that. Yeah, it was an Australian exclusive, which would explain why I guess they don't come up as often. All right, we just took a pause for a second because David made me double check myself on eBay on that. Turns out I was wrong. Things have changed a little bit since I last checked. The Dark Charmeleon does seem to be harder to find overall than the Arbok. I remember the Arbok being a little bit harder to get than the Charmeleon, but I guess things have just shifted. I guess when I have cards in my collection, I stop keeping track of them as well. But yeah, the art book is a little bit easier to get than the Charmeleon. David also wanted me to clarify on what I was talking about when I said sealed. The Charmeleon is the only one that's sealed in that like clear cellophane that we talk about. That a lot of promo cards come in. The Arbok, if you get it sealed, is in like a red envelope, so you can't see any of the card at all. It's a fully obscured card. And then obviously the other 5 are within bags in magazines. You get the magazine in a bag, and then the card's just loose in there. Once you take the magazine out, the card's completely loose. There's no additional seal on the card itself.
Got it. Okay. All right. So the last thing that I had pulled out for today was
Yeah,
the recent what I'm going to call the Snowflake set or the
Yeah.
holiday set. And the reason that I find that interesting is not so much the fact that I, of course, needed to purchase one for my collection, trying to get every single card,
Yeah.
but it's because we all look back to the first Snowflake set from many, many years ago and see
Yeah.
how much that has increased in value. And I noticed quite of a wide variety of pricing on this Snowflake set when it came out. It escalated rapidly, at least
Yeah.
in percentage from where it came out here in the States. It seemed to be that there were more of it in the European countries or areas, but didn't seem to be cheaper, and especially when you considered shipping to try to get it from Europe here. So I actually didn't just pick up one of these sets. I picked up about 40 of them or something just to put
Okay.
away for investment, because I think that if Pokemon continues to do well, there are going to be people down the road a few years that might look and say, I really want to make sure I have this as part of my collection, and I don't, or I need one, and
Yeah.
that may even take them and harken them back to the very first one as well. So
Yeah. So main differences, these we should say these were found in advent calendars. The first advent calendar that David's mentioning came out, I think it was around 2007, and that was a calendar where every day of the 24 had a card with a snowflake stamp on it, and then the last day also had a booster pack with it. They were cards primarily from the first couple of sets of Diamond and Pearl. I think it was Diamond and Pearl Mysterious Treasures. I think maybe a bit further, but anyway, it was early Diamond and Pearl sets, and then one Black Star promo Pikachu, which was a new variant with the snowflake stamp on it. This new advent calendar uh, has just 8 snowflake promos in it. The other days have booster packs, mini booster packs, that kind of thing. So that's one of the main differences in it. I still think the other advent calendar is always going to be a lot rarer, because that one is what I think was only released in Canada. I don't think the US actually got that one, whereas this one was released through the Pokemon Center. So all of North America, all of Europe got this one.
yeah, and it seemed to sell out fairly quickly as far as on the original releases, and I know that the Pikachu is a SWSH promo card
Yeah.
153. Are the other cards SWSH promos as well?
No, so that was one of the other things I was going to mention. So the other 7 cards are all cards from sets with the Snowflake variant. But in this one, the Pikachu is not a variant. This is the only version of that promo Pikachu that exists. So, like within the first one, there it was DP16, I think, was the Pikachu promo. The Pikachu was released in another product. It was released like in a blister or something like that, and then a version was released with the Snowflake stamp in the Advent calendar. So the Advent calendar was entirely variants. But this one, the Pikachu hasn't had a release without that Snowflake stamp. So the Advent calendar is the only place to get this Black Star promo if you're trying to fill in, even if you don't care about variants and you just want one of each number for Black Star promos, you need the Snowflake stamped Pikachu. It's the only version of it.
Or if you're a Pikachu collector, as we know some
Yeah,
people are as well. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And I think there's been some speculation, but I personally believe that this is a promo that was put into its numbering spot to fill a gap for a missing worlds promo. If you actually look at the Black Star promos for Sword and Shield, there were 2 Black Star promos that came out so much later than their number would suggest. If you follow the numbers through, 1, 2, 3 are probably going to be the first things released. As you go down, it's not always exactly in order, but it's usually roughly in order. You get like blocks coming out at a time, but there were 2 numbers that just didn't come out for a long, long time after everything around them came out. There was one that's somewhere in the 60s, which ended up being a Pikachu VMAX that came out with Celebrations. All the other Celebrations products were like number 150 something. This one was number 60. And then there was a card that this Pikachu fills in, which, again, what we said was 150 something on that one too, or 160-ish. And then that came out when we were well into the 200s. And I personally think that those were originally planned to be the promo numbers for what would probably have been Champions Festival at Worlds 2020 and 2021 before they got cancelled. And so then they had to find other cards to fill in that gap, because they didn't just want to leave people with gaps in the promo numbering for these cards that never came out. So I personally think there's a good chance that that's what that was, and that's why the number is so much earlier in the set, despite it being released relatively close to the end of Sword and Shield era.
Oh, that's interesting. And when you mention holes in the numbering systems, isn't it the case that there's only like 2 holes in all of the numbering system going back?
If you count English only cards, there are 4. If
Okay.
you are okay picking up French cards, there are 2. Because so Black and White had a Pikachu Raichu promo set that was never released. It was supposed to come in blister packs. They didn't. The blister packs got moved around, and the blister packs eventually released with different promos. So the Pikachu and Raichu never came out. I'll put pictures on the screen so people know what they are. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. But then towards the end of the Diamond and Pearl set, there was the promo numbers went up to 56. So 53 was one version of Arceus Level X. 56 was another version of Arceus Level X. But 54 and 55 only came out in French. For some reason, I think it was France didn't get the set Arceus, but they got some other promo versions of the Arceus cards. But there were cards in the set Arceus. It's Beginning Door and Ultimate Zone, I think, are the cards that you really need in order to actually have the Arceus deck at the time be playable. You know, it wasn't a really competitive deck, but they really, really helped the deck along. So they released those as Black Star promos in France, just so people playing French cards actually had a way to play the Arceus deck. I don't know exactly how the story follows. I might be slightly off on some of that just because it's French cards and it's the Diamond and Pearl era, so research is a nightmare. But those 2 were never released in English. You can get, obviously, the cards with the correct promo numbers on to go into your binder. If you want to fill the gaps, they would just be French. But for English cards, the Pikachu Raichu from Black and White era are completely missing. We're never getting those. And then if you look at Japanese, because I know some people will put in the comments, there are 6 or 7 cards missing from early Black and White era, which were for the 2011 Worlds qualifying tournaments that were all cancelled due to the tsunami that Japan had in 2011. So all of the cards associated with that tournament were never given out. So Japanese Black and White has a gap of unobtainable promos also.
Wow, that's very interesting. I had no idea about that. All right, I have nothing else to discuss on my end. I do want to let people know, because I don't know what all the, you'll put like in the pictures at dperson1, and I think that's like a Instagram or something, but I also have the...
I think we've got you credited as David Pokeperson, which is your
Okay.
website.
Okay, so, I do want to let people know that if they're ever interested, I used to do a lot of videos and stuff, so there is a YouTube channel which you can just search for David Person Pokemon, and you might enjoy some of the old stuff when I was going over different cards and different sets, and we did some crazy stuff with the family and some crazy skits and stuff. So please feel free to go there, watch, and enjoy as well, if that brings anybody any pleasure while I'm on my hiatus from filming, and Daniel Norton takes care of all those responsibilities for me on this channel.
Yeah, this one is I do all of that sort of thing. To let people know as well, on the comments, you've been replying to them from your account of Lucas's basketball account. So that's not David. That is David, if you're looking, but that's not his only account. He does have a Pokemon account too. In the description of this one, I'll put a link to your Pokemon account and also to your website, so people can go check that out if they want to.
Okay, that sounds great.
Yeah. David has a lot of really cool stuff for sale on the website, so it's always worth a look.
Thank you. And so the website doesn't get all that much traffic, but at least people know it's there. And there's also eBay as well. So, anybody that wants something, you want a better deal or something, just reach out to me and let me know, and we take care of it. So,
yep, that's always the way to go. All right, so I think that's all we really need to talk about for today. Hopefully by next week, we know for definite if that deal is going to go through. And if it is, we'll be able to talk about that. But I'm sure we'll find a lot of interesting stuff to talk about next week either way. But, as always, if you have any questions or anything you would like us to talk about, just drop it in the comments. Try and keep it Pokemon related. Like I say, if you talk about other card games, I'll give a quick answer, but David probably doesn't know anything about it.
You got to end the broadcast just like that? Come on. And plus, I've got my own special delivery Bidoof. You've got the plush. I've got the card. Okay, I know you and Laura have the cards as well.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Yeah, this one is a super cute one. He's really fluffy. I've got a Vaporeon as well. That it's I don't even know what's it called. I was trying to see if it had like a special branding type or anything on the tag, but it's just a fluffy Bidoof. Anyway, that's it for this week. Hopefully you all did enjoy. Hopefully we'll hear from some of you, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye-bye.
I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who chooses to support me on Patreon. If you'd like to get involved, help support the channel, and see some behind-the-scenes content, click on the link in the description. Thanks again.
Thanks for watching. Check out some more videos right here.
And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome Pokemon content from DJ Gigabyte.
Gotta catch 'em all!